smart people, for Monday, May 20th, 2019. I'm Nico. I'm your host, talking movies, television, music, and so much more in a way that smart people can enjoy them. I have some guests in studio and out of studio today. First time I think we've ever done this on Cultured, but we had to have a little powwow after a monumental pop culture event last night. Zakk Caponegro was over there.
Hello.
And on the other line, Nicholas Mario Brandon Evangelista.
How are you?
Nick, you heard the Cultured theme song for the first time, or so you claim today.
I spat out my coffee.
Yeah.
Back into the cup.
Is it really that bad?
It just caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
it's kind of circusy. I'll admit that.
a little bit.
Like many theme songs on this website are. They're kind of like, yeah, step right up.
Yeah.
Guess
you
the
take
weight
what
of
you
this
can
pig.
get. You
Guess
take
the
whatever you
weight
do
of this
won't
pig.
demonetize.
That's exactly right. Royalty-free music, hard to come by these days. What's even harder to come by is good
royalty-free music.
Yeah, why does all the royalty-free music have to suck? Come on.
Yeah.
People.
It's like they don't care about it or something. Fuck.
Right. It's like they can't make any money off it. Crazy. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Last night was a big thing. It was the series finale of a show on HBO.
The Sopranos.
The Sopranos.
This might be the most important thing we've ever talked about.
The Sopranos?
No, this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I sort of found myself over the last few weeks just doing Game of Thrones podcasts here. And I didn't mean to do that. Like, I very rarely just recap a TV show every week.
It just sort of happened.
I just try to do the biggest story in pop culture. That's always what I'm looking for to lead off the show. And it seemed like Game of Thrones was always the biggest story. Avengers, I think, stole the mantle for a week. There was never any news that was that groundbreaking. And I think that was purposeful because a lot of movies and I think TV networks just got out of the way and said, all right, here's the Rock, Game of Thrones. You have 6 weeks, then you're done, and then we can continue on with our regular lives. Because that's the effect Game of Thrones had.
Yeah.
The world just stopped when it happened. Did you guys go to Game of Thrones viewing parties and stuff? What was your experience?
I went for the premiere and the finale.
Yeah.
Everything else was just sort of at home.
Okay.
I didn't watch a single episode in the same place.
Oh, really?
It was just sort of by coincidence, but yeah.
And what was that like? Did you prefer? I mean, did you wish that this was bigger for you than it was? Did you treat this like a Super Bowl?
No, I mean, I treated it as the end of a show I thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah,
That's about it.
right.
I mean, I did the same thing with, and I know you're probably going to groan, but I did the same thing with Big Bang this week because the finale of that just aired.
Yep.
And, it's a thing, and it ended. I've never actually caught the end of a TV show that I followed,
Okay.
so it was kind of weird. But
Watching with everyone else.
yeah, because everything else was either I stopped watching before it ended or I watched it all after it ended.
Yeah.
So it was sort of...
And the reason I bring this up, and I think you're both sort of confirming my theory on this, all three of us got to a place where Game of Thrones was no longer an event. It was just another TV show.
It was just another day watching it, yeah.
Yeah. That's certainly how it felt like on finale night. I remember, for example, the day Avengers came out, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Something's happening tonight. It clear the way. Last night it was just oh, yeah. Thrones ends. I wonder how.
Well, and even with the, I guess you could call it a party that I went to. It was just there was still 20 minutes left, and somebody turned to somebody else and said, "So you're staying for Barry afterwards, right?" So
I mean, the best show on television, Barry.
Yeah, I guess
Quietly the greatest show on TV.
So it was everyone was just sort of I mean, it's on.
Right.
It wasn't...
Dude, Barry's fucking incredible.
Is it good?
Oh my God, it's so good. And last night was so awesome. Nick, I want to turn to you and ask you a similar question because when I first... Well, I guess I'm not going to take credit for it, but when you were first introduced to Game of Thrones, it was your cultural obsession. I remember the first episode you watched, and when you started reading those books,
Well,
you couldn't get
I
enough.
was watching it before you were, I'm pretty sure.
No, that's not right.
When did you start watching it?
I started watching season 3.
Yeah, I started watching it season between season 2 and season 3.
Yeah, I heard about it first from Nick.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
So
Yeah.
I,
And then, like,
I
a
actually
few
remember
weeks later,
you.
I remember you
I remember
saying-
you for a while. You didn't want to watch it. I thought because you were like, it's dragons and shit. And then
Right.
you got into it. So no, I've been well, my cousin Justin got me into it right after season 2 ended, and we watched all of season 1 in one night, and then we watched. I watched season 2 by myself over the course of like 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I rewatched it a couple times, and then season 3 came out, and I started reading the books, and yeah, I just got obsessed with it. It was all in, mostly in the books though. I really loved the theories and all the stuff behind it.
Well, because it was so easy to fall into it way back then.
Well, you also had this thing where the books were enhancing the show and the show was enhancing the books. And it was this very weird thing. I think it maybe only happened with Harry Potter, where audiences were enjoying both products equally as much. And in some cases, like the show was like increasing the popularity of the books.
Yeah.
You don't really have that all that often. And it because the story is like so sprawling and there's so much detail, you never felt like one was cheapening the other. And that's like that's a small miracle for this show to pull off. And so,
Well,
like,
I think part of that is based on a couple things. Like George was very involved with the show.
yep,
And his career started as like a writer for TV, so he understands the medium.
yep,
And he was very particular about who he was going to work with.
right.
And he also had been developing these books since the 90s, so he had literally almost 2 decades of material,
Right.
Or thoughts.
A lot of
He's been-
time to think about it. Yeah,
right? So, and of course HBO just has a butt ton of money that they're willing to throw at this thing
Right.
every year.
Well, now they
increasing.
did.
What year? Yeah, I was wondering what year did Game of Thrones get popular?
see,
Because
I'm having a hard time.
I think it was like
pinpointing.
season 3 or 4 around then.
Probably.
It seemed.
I think season 3
seemed like
was that
everybody-
big shock.
Yeah.
And season 4, everybody, like after season 3, everybody was like, you need to watch this. And everybody was caught up by the time season 4 came out.
Yeah. It seemed like everybody that I knew who got into it only got into it during season 3. Like I don't remember
Yeah.
anybody ever going, hey, like there's this brand new show out called Game of Thrones, you should watch it.
Well, if you watch those first few seasons, they're very low budget. Or I
Yeah.
guess low budget comparatively, like not
Comparative, yeah, it's not.
compared to TV at the time. It was still
It's
like,
not in somebody's backyard.
Yeah, it
but
was
it's
expensive.
It's not HBO.
but the CGI was not there. The pilot specifically, I remember being very stiff.
Yeah.
Like it's just sort of a run of the mill costume drama that you might see on Stars.
Yeah.
It wasn't until a few seasons in where they're like, oh, we actually have something here. So now we sort of think of it as this is just a movie on TV. But I think it's important not to forget that this was kind of a surprise hit and a miracle. And shows like this don't often succeed, especially on television, where you introduce the world to a new mythology and they buy it.
Well, and especially on premium television.
Yeah.
On these paid services, which not many people get interested in. But
How many people canceled their HBO Go subscriptions this morning?
That's yeah.
I was thinking
it's-
the exact same thing.
I wonder if they like put out a number.
because
Well, what I really liked was right before I saw it on HBO Go. I didn't watch it on TV.
yep.
So I don't know if it was a little different for you guys, but when I started it, they somebody clearly was paid to put together like a 3-minute reel of just here's everything HBO has to offer.
Thank you.
Please
I was going to
stay
point
subscribed.
this out. I was going to point this out myself. They went hard on the trailers yesterday.
Yeah,
they had this
They
shit.
showed like 18 shows
Oh
in
my
a row
God.
in like a 3-minute ad. Just
you-
like here's everything.
yes, and all these stars. Here's John Goodman. Here's Zendaya. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It was convincing. I was like,
Apparently,
my
Aaron
cousin,
Paul.
if my cousin keeps paying for HBO Go, I'll watch a couple of these things.
Exactly. Aaron Paul is going to be on Westworld. Apparently, so they showed the trailer for that.
I saw that.
Yeah. So to give you some context, season 1 was only averaging 3 million viewers an episode, and it went up steadily every year. It didn't cross 5 million until season 6. I'm sorry, not season 6, season 4. It averaged about 6 million viewers. So
I
that's
think
sort of
season
when it
4
took
is
off.
really where that's because season 3 has that Red Wedding,
Right.
which is like I think in the books, in the show, to this day, still the biggest, like, holy fuck moment.
Right.
That's the thing that, everything else just doesn't quite live up to it.
Right.
And I think that's what really settles a lot of people on whether they're going to like the show or not, and it just worked.
So if we can just backtrack real quick.
Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a study done, apparently, that came out, I think, like end of, I think the article was end of April or whatever, but it said that 37% of HBO subscribers were seriously considering canceling after Game of Thrones.
That is insane.
That's a lot of people.
That's crazy.
Well, and that also leads me to be like, how can HBO not have already, like 2 years ago, started filming one of the spinoffs and shown a trailer right after this show ended? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird that the timing is, now we just got confirmation that they're doing these.
They botched it.
Yeah.
No, I was stunned there wasn't at least a little teaser.
They should have done even just like a name.
Yeah.
Or even
Like,
if they had
just
just
something.
like George come on and be like, hey, this is like what we're thinking, like a quick like 5-minute interview, so to speak.
Don't they have
just
it
to talk
cast?
about it? But
Don't they have the new show cast?
They might.
I think so.
Naomi Watts is going to be the star of it. I think.
I thought they had it cast already.
I have a strong feeling that these shows aren't going to be nearly as good, though.
You don't say.
They're just going to be really. I think they're going to be pretty disappointing. You know.
You don't say. I mean, I don't know enough about the people behind them. Like, that's what makes or breaks the show is how good the writing
George has
staff is.
written a couple of books in the world of Westeros and that are not part of the A Song of Ice and Fire, and I think these are going to be loosely based off of those. So I think there will be some.
Well, yeah, because one is based off of
influence from him.
off like the graphic novel he put out a little while ago, isn't it? That's what I heard.
Maybe. I can't even keep track of all the stuff he's wrote.
I do know they're going to be prequels. Right?
Yeah.
I know at least one of them is going to be a prequel that deals with.
The Mad King, isn't it?
Yeah, might be. I'm not entirely sure.
There's one series called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, I think, where it follows the characters they call Dunk and Egg, which is really Sir Duncan and Aegon. One of the old Aegons, and they're both hedge knights just traveling Westeros. And to me, it feels like a what is it,
Rosencrantz Guildenstern,
yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
It feels. I haven't read it, but just the name Dunk and Egg, it seems like that dynamic to me. I feel like that could be fun.
Oh, I'm totally down for that.
Fire and Blood, I think more about Targaryens in Valyria or whatever. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about this episode. I want to talk about this season. And I want to talk about the show as a whole, obviously. But really quick, we've just completely glossed over this. The ending of the show. Did you like it?
Oh, we're gonna do that
Good
now?
ending?
I thought we were
I thought we were doing a little
want to lead
foreplay.
up to
Yeah,
that?
I thought we were leading up to that.
I thought we were easing our way in. I mean, come on, whisper sweet nothings in my ear first, Nick, before we get right into it. Jesus, you move too fast.
This a lot that I want to talk about.
Go
kind of
ahead.
rests
Go
on
ahead.
this.
Listen. You're on the edge of your seat. Go ahead.
Literally, he might be. He's awfully close to this camera.
Yeah,
Go for it, pretty-
Go for it, bro.
I liked it.
Whoa! Wow.
I liked it.
You
There's
did.
a lot of people. There's a lot of people complaining about it, and I've been complaining all season.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I liked
Why? Why?
it. So a lot of the problems with the season so far have been they knew where it was ending, and they just wanted to get there.
Sure.
But once they got there, I thought the ending was fine. I thought the ending was the ending sort of went back to what I kind of thought the show was. It was a little rushed. There were a few problems and weird things about it, but overall, once they got there, I was kind of okay with it.
Specifically, what part of the ending?
No, there's only one part I feel like that you don't like.
Well, no, I think there's a few things.
Well, did you guys like it? Generally, yes or no? I mean, I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, and to me, from the story sense, it makes sense. To me, like I understood. I was a little disappointed that one thing didn't happen, and then everything else happened, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that to me.
I'm glad it made sense to you.
Yeah.
I'm glad it made sense to you.
Did it not make sense to you?
No. Okay. All right. I'll say this. First and foremost, series finales of shows really fucking suck.
Yes.
And it is
A lot of times they do.
the vast majority. I can
Actually,
name
even Breaking Bad, which is a phenomenal show, like the
awful
ending to me was
finale.
the worst.
Awful. Terrible.
Terrible. Awful finale. And I'm not ashamed to say it. The ending sucked. I don't care. Don't at me, people. Not a good finale.
I can think of one show that I was 100% on board with the ending.
Yes.
And it was The Office.
Okay. Didn't love that ending either. I'll be honest with you. I can name on one hand Doug The Sopranos, Doug Seinfeld, Doug Friday Night Lights. 3 good series finales. End of list. Shows
Don't a lot
are
of people shit on the Seinfeld finale.
Yeah, I love
Everybody
it.
shits on it except Nico, apparently.
I embrace it. I think it's an awesome, ambitious statement about the nature of humanity. I think it's great. And it doesn't get enough credit. No, I'm serious. I think it is.
I haven't seen it, so I'm just going to nod my head.
Yeah. The job of a finale is to look back on the show that you've created, and oftentimes it's the head writers that do this, and reflect and say something about the nature of their story. Like, that's the idea of a finale. And
Maybe.
shows are not built to do that. Like, shows are built to exist. They're built to sustain multiple seasons. They're built to bring audience members back. They're built to create characters that you enjoy spending time with. And they're not, generally speaking, written for a predestination, right? That's sort of what Game of Thrones did here. And it had an impossible task because George had the ending in mind. George told them what the ending was, and they were forced to, reverse engineer, essentially, the path to get there.
Yeah.
So I will say that all up top.
But again, that's like what I was saying before. The problem with the season.
Yes.
That's getting there.
I get
so
it.
once they got there.
I get it. So understand my expectations were not that high. Finales suck.
Okay.
I thought it was a boring episode of TV. And I think that's the worst problem of all. That is the worst criticism I can levy on it. I was bored to death. And I wasn't particularly surprised. And and I guess I wouldn't consider confusement surprise, because I was definitely confused. And that's worse, I think. None of the decisions made sense to me. I have been sort of racking my brain on the moments that foreshadowed Bran's ascent and the moments that foreshadowed what the hell was going on with Drogon and Dany. And I was trying to think, did they lay the groundwork? And then did they justify these decisions? And whereas I was in the minority last episode, I thought they did a perfectly fine job justifying Dany's turn to the dark side. I did not think they did any plausible legwork with the Bran stuff. And that really bothers me. And I'm going to be, thinking about that decision for a while, and I'm not sure they'll have an excuse, and I'm talking about David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. I don't think they'll have an excuse beyond, well, George told us it was going to end that way. And that's an issue, I think. It's a real issue.
The Bran thing is the biggest question mark of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, Nico, we spoke a little bit after episode 5 when Dany had her thing.
Yes.
Meltdown.
When she broke bad.
Yeah, when, she got a little upset.
She said, call me Heisenberg. And then burnt down the palace.
You goddamn right.
She pulled the Barry from last night, as a matter of fact. I just want to point out, the season finale of Barry last night was basically episode 5 of Game of Thrones, but better. I just want to point that out for everybody. Okay. Watch Barry. Go ahead.
So initially, because of my frustrations with the season as a whole, I think I sort of let that bleed into episode 5 for me.
Yep.
And I thought about it. I slept on it because I think I texted you immediately after the show was done.
Yes.
Or you texted me or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I woke up the next morning and I thought about it, let it stew, and I decided, you know what? The episode was good.
Yes.
The season was bad, so up to now. But the episode by itself was fun.
Right. Well, sure, for some people.
Well, fun is an interesting word, but
it's a very liberal use of the word fun,
Yeah.
but I feel that.
Well, you're watching TV to be entertained, whether it's
it was moving.
Whether it's highs or lows, it doesn't really matter.
It was a ride, no question.
Yeah.
It was moving.
And yeah, I get what you mean by this episode being definitely more dull.
Oh my God.
No fire, but at the same time, it felt better concluded than a lot of shows that I've watched.
Okay, so this is an interesting question that I want to pose. What do you mean by better? And this is a very specific question. What
Satisfying.
Okay, so you are looking for a series finale of a TV show that you like to be satisfying. That is the most important bar for it to clear.
Something like this, yes. Something that a lot of people I think have invested a lot of years of their life into.
Okay.
They want some closure.
Okay.
I'm not saying it has to be happy or anything like that, but just, generally satisfying, at least of what does the future hold. That's really all I wanted out of this. All I wanted out of this episode is what is the future after this show.
Zakk, do you agree?
I agree almost 100% with what Nick is saying.
Okay.
Because you were saying before, the job of a show is to reflect, and I think with certain shows, I think it makes sense. Certainly with something like Seinfeld or The Office, even the job is to reflect. But I think with this, especially because they have all the spin-offs, they have the greater world at large of Westeros, and this thing that everybody has spent so many years reading and theorizing and being invested in. I don't think they necessarily needed to reflect. I don't think that was the goal of this. I think it was to show where are we going. Mm-hmm. The book is called A Dream of Spring.
Sure. Was that the name of the episode, by the way?
I don't know.
I think so.
Okay. Because
not 100% sure, but I think so.
I suspected it might have been. I'll check that right now.
My big thing with finales and everything like that is I'm usually focusing on what the show is trying to be. Mm-hmm. Right, so with sitcoms, it's trying to be a show and lighthearted and enjoy itself. And
excuse me, it was actually called The Iron Throne. That's what it was called.
Yeah, well,
so there you go.
Well, they should have called it A Dream of Spring.
Yeah, I agree.
They really dropped the ball.
Yes, they did.
But with a show like this, to me, it's less about the show and more about it has to play out like a book. And if the ending of this, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you read a lot of fantasy stuff and things like that, and as well as I do. But the ending of this, if this was the ending of a long series of books, I would have been more than okay with how this ended.
Do you feel like this was an ending that is it would gel well with you? Obviously you have to project given how the next two novels are going to look.
Yeah.
But this feels right as a Game of Thrones reader?
I don't know if you remember years and years and years and years ago.
Okay. I definitely don't. I'll say
I used to always say that Bran's only purpose in the story was to be the king of the North later.
Okay.
And this was before this was season 3 or something. This was a long time.
Uh-huh.
And I sort of fell off that. I was like, nah, that doesn't really make sense anymore with the way the story was going. And then they did it anyways.
Right.
So,
it makes sense to you.
It didn't seem super far out of left field, but it did. It definitely feels like the books are going to have a lot more explaining to do.
Yeah.
With how things got there. That's all.
So I want to talk about this notion of satisfaction because it's sometimes a hard thing to pin down. And I think that's sort of my main point whenever we talk about series finales. Satisfaction means different things to different people.
Yes.
And I think for some, it means that the story is wrapped up in a nice bow. They feel good about the journey that they just went on, and they feel optimistic about the future of their characters. And for some shows, the finale achieves that, and that's all they're looking for. I don't really care about that all that much. For some people, they just want to see an ending that they feel was promised. That they saw certain bits of foreshadowing and pieces about the plot, and they have an ending in mind, and they are looking for that ending to play out, and anything short of that would not constitute satisfaction. And I don't think I'm interested in that either. I am okay with the plot going in whatever direction the writers want to go in. What I'm looking for, and what I would consider to be a satisfying ending, is a statement. And it's a statement about the world that we're living in. Not the statement of Westeros, not a lesson about these characters, not a lesson about their story, but a lesson about our story. What can we take away from this decision that teaches us something about life? And I think that was one of the great things about Game of Thrones in the earlier seasons, it was about us fundamentally. It's about the nature of love. It's about the nature of duty, about sacrificing the truth, your life for the greater good being the truth. That's the story of Ned Stark, essentially. It's about, sacrificing your life in the service of love rather than a promise that you made in the case of Robb Stark, right? The story was more than just the world of Westeros. These last few seasons, it became very clear to me this show is no longer about us. It's about the show. And that's what that ending felt like. Here are the chess pieces. We are interested in seeing how these chess pieces play out, but it doesn't really tell us anything. Like, all this really tells us is, oh, cool. Bran became a magical wizard in the forest, and now he's king. Great. What is that supposed to mean for me? And the answer is, unfortunately, nothing. Like, this finale didn't make any sort of statement about the world, didn't really express any unique worldview on the world, which is another thing that George R. R. Martin does so well, is that he has this interesting philosophy about how people act under intense circumstances. Sometimes it's cynical, sometimes it's optimistic, but it's this really fascinating exploration, this really fascinating character study. The ending didn't do anything. Like, I would argue the most profound character moment last night was from a dragon. Like, seriously, I would like the dragon probably had the most well-defined character motivations last night. He's the one person that made a political statement or a philosophical statement. Other than that, I'm not sure what the hell happened. Arya traveling west? What the hell does that mean?
I kind of disagree with you there. I think the first 45 minutes to an hour of the show kind of did hit upon, maybe not quite as strongly as it should have, but it did hit upon some of these sort of messages, I guess.
About?
Or as close as we were going to get. Well, you have Tyrion and his sort of last stand against Daenerys, and he throws his pin down. It was a pretty strong moment.
Yes, I agree.
Even, I mean, I didn't love this, but even when Jon did kill Daenerys...
What were we supposed to take away?
I think it goes back to the conversation that Jon and Tyrion had about duty and love.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that sort of ties nicely with what Ned Stark was always on about. With the whole, look, you have a job. The job is to do what's right in the world no matter what that thing is. And
well, it's more than that.
Well, I know it's more. I'm just sort of boiling it down. But Jon's whole thing was, yeah, I love her, but the right thing is to stop her from doing what she did to King's Landing all over the world. And the only way to do that is to, maybe not the only way to do it is to kill her, but he took what was right over what he wanted. And I think that was a nice sort of reflection of what season 1 was about.
And it's more than that too. It's lessons that he's learned along the way from all of his teachers. He has Ned, he has Maester Aemon, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the old guy at the wall. Yeah.
And even from Robb Stark's failures.
Okay.
To a degree, to a lesser degree, but I don't know. I think it's sort of like in a way, it felt like a culmination of Jon's storyline there. It's like making the choice he had to make.
Yeah,
and I think it was such a good bookend to his story.
And I also liked that, even, he told Tyrion before he left, he said, "She is my queen." He didn't say she is the queen. He said, "She is my queen."
Right.
And then even when he killed her, he said, "You will always be my queen."
Mm-hmm.
And there were a few things in the episode that did that. They never
with Jaime too.
Yeah, when Brienne wrote that thing about Jaime, he died protecting his queen,
his queen,
not the queen or the right queen, his queen.
And I think there's sort of an acknowledgement from the show of like there is not like the king or the queen. There is allegiance lies where people believe it lies, kind of thing.
Right. It's all just an arbitrary system. Yeah, of politics. You people just have they put their flags wherever they choose, and it's just like this made up construct, like the Iron Throne itself. And I guess that's what like Drogon was doing there with melting the Iron Throne, just acknowledging that this chair doesn't have power. people
right,
have
the people
power.
have the power. Everyone
Well,
else
and it
has
goes,
power.
and they touch upon that even more when they
Sam?
have all of the people in power are from now on going to decide who is the king through a vote. Not quite yet. There's a little joke in there where Sam recommends, sort of modern day democracy, and they all
Yes.
laugh.
And
him
everyone
off.
just sort of shrugs it off. Yeah, that was funny.
But yeah, they're going to have a sort of system where all of the people of the six kingdoms
Right.
are going
Yeah.
to vote for the king, and it's not going to be picked based on succession or family or anything like that. And it's the goal was to break the wheel of families just running things in war, and I think it succeeded in that.
Break
So
the wheel, build a
I do
wheelchair. That's what the
Right.
lesson was, apparently.
Well, right. No, I do think they did hit upon those things. And I think the last 30 minutes or so was just, all right, we're going to wrap up everything for the future of these characters. And I think that's okay. That
Yeah,
they did that.
I didn't see anything wrong with the idea that this is how they want to do it. It's not necessarily the right way to do it, maybe, but this is how they all decided to do it, and this is how it's working out. And then it's an ending that leads to something else, which I'm always a big fan of.
Look, man, I'm down with whatever decision they want to make. You just got to defend the decision.
Yeah.
If you're the writers of the show, you just got to make me believe the decision. I did not see anything that indicated this ending with Bran.
Well, the main thing, and I knew this, I actually knew this before we even started. I just had a gut feeling. The main thing you were going to have a problem with Bran being king.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's fair. I get it.
It's just, what are you trying to say? Like, what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that people like a story? Really? That
whole line with Tyrion talking about
that monologue was weak, by the way. You
Yeah.
know, I love me a Dinklage monologue.
So do I.
That
I
was
don't-
weak as hell.
That was not Peter Dinklage speaking. That was not even Tyrion speaking. That was George R. R. Martin speaking. That was one of those things that authors always do.
Yeah.
Where they always throw in the power of a story
Right.
into their stories. And it's a trope at this point, I think, to a degree.
It's worse than a trope. It's a crutch, is what it is.
And I don't mind it because I'm a very avid fantasy reader, so I connect to it.
I'll tell you an easy way to teach America about the power of stories. Write a good story. How about that? Like, why do I need to hear about how great your book series is while I'm watching the finale of your television show? Like, why do I literally need the title of the series shoved into the show like that Family Guy joke with Peter Griffin in the theater?
I didn't love that.
Like,
I really didn't.
Remember the Superman
yeah.
4, the
Yeah.
quest for peace.
Oh, that's why they called it that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't love that.
Oh no,
Sam
it's
coming in
just
with that was kind of cheesy, and
I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. To me,
didn't
it was
ruin
just
it.
no. It happened. I knew as soon as Sam got to the Citadel and you saw the sun thing. The whole big thing was, oh, okay, so everything that's happening is written by somebody, and it is the story, and it is a Song of Ice and Fire. I don't think they needed to introduce it here. I don't hate that they introduced it here. It didn't add anything. It didn't take anything away.
no. I'm fine with it. I'm just in regards to Bran. This whole thing, the apparently the story that we've been told for 11 years now is that America loves a kid that falls out of a window. That's the story? Really? Like, that's the note we're going out on? You have an opportunity with this statement. And this is a fascinating question. Like, ad campaigns have been made around this. Like, Oreos keep asking every week, who's going to rule the sit on the Iron Throne, rule Westeros? Like, this is a fundamental question that America is on the edge of their seat to know. You have an opportunity to really say something. And you pick the crippled kid. What are you trying to say? I still can't figure it out. And that's a failure. Not the decision itself. I don't mind if you do it. I really don't. Some people just hate the Bran character. I'm not there.
I hate Bran. I'm
Whatever.
not thrilled he's on it, but I'm like, okay.
I'm not approaching it from that point of view.
Yeah.
I'm just asking that you defend the decision and make a damn statement. Say something with your show. This is art. You're supposed to say something. They didn't say anything with that decision. If you made Arya the king, Now maybe you're saying something. If you make Sansa, I could see a more compelling case. There was nothing there for Bran. Absolutely nothing. Right?
I don't know if I really see that. Like anyone more towards the fact of anyone else sitting on the throne making a statement.
Well, I think so
I don't see what statement it would be from anybody else.
Well, I think Sansa is far more like the power of the victim to overcome her aggressors. Right? And
I suppose, yeah. People had a lot of issues with Sansa's entire arc too because they used rape as character development.
Yes, I know that.
Big
thing,
so.
But that's going to be a big thing,
yes,
regardless of what show it's on.
People were upset about that with the Hound conversation, and I'll be honest with you. I heard that conversation. I was like, "Oh, this is maybe a little strange."
It was a bit in bad taste.
Yeah, where she was like, if it were not
they
for
also
Ramsay,
wrote in the rape that wasn't in the books. So
yeah,
well,
it's just
if,
bad.
If you make her queen, though, that at least she spent the show learning how to rule, right? Like, so there is at least some runway for her.
Well, and she is, though. That's the thing. She is ruling.
Yeah, I
her
get
own
it.
Kingdom.
No, I get it.
The size of this kingdom, the exact same size. She's, you know what I
dig
mean?
it.
It's not.
I'm not
So
really.
she did get that.
I'm not really sure what Bran went through. I mean, Bran became a magical wizard that could see everything, the future and the past and the present. Cool. Why does that make you more or less qualified to be king? And why did he have to do that in the first place? Like, what was the point? As a plot device?
I think more. Yeah, I kind of do feel like it was a plot device, to be honest. I don't think they were even trying to make a statement with it as much.
I mean, was it just? Was it a means to reveal to Jon who his real parents were? Is that the point? Because that's sort of what Bran.
What are you trying to say?
Is it was that the whole reason why Bran was on the show, was to reveal to Jon who his real parents were, and then he becomes king? Like, I'm not. Again, I don't know where the work was done.
So I don't have an answer. Maybe we can get to one by the end of this podcast.
I always took Bran's story, as much as I hated it, I always took it as he's one of the few people in the show who doesn't care about anything else except, and this sounds weird, who doesn't care about anything except everyone. Because his only thing was he doesn't care who sits on the throne, he doesn't give a shit. The only thing he wanted was to stop the Night King, who's hell-bent on killing every living person on the planet.
Okay.
Basically. So I took it as he's the only one who's truly neutral about ruling, because he could care if Cersei's on it or if Dany's on it. He only cares about making sure everybody is living and alive.
All right, so I feel that. So what that's signaling to me then is that the finale was not about Bran becoming king, but about Jon and Dany each not becoming king or queen. And I guess that's it's sort of arbitrary who the final person actually was.
That's kind of how I felt about it,
That's how I felt about it, and that's how...
I don't think it mattered.
Yeah.
Whatever, fine, but I think that's weak. I think that's weak.
There is some interesting stuff about Bran being the choice, but I want to... Let's keep this conversation, because I think we will come to a conclusion. Maybe not the best, but a conclusion.
Go for it.
So, they call him Bran the Broken.
Well, Tyrion does, yeah.
Right. And I don't know, I think it's kind of interesting how in the lore of Game of Thrones there is Bran the Builder, one of his ancestors who built the wall, and it's interesting if you look at that. The wall sort of separated the people. It wasn't something that really protected them in the end. It really separated the people from the wildlings from the north. So maybe they're looking at it as if like building was like a bad thing, and breaking the wheel is a good thing. So I don't know if they're trying to make some sort of statement there. You see where I'm trying to go?
I can see it, but I feel like it's
a little weak.
It's a weak and such a stretch that not many people would think that.
I'm just posing questions here.
I'm with you. Okay.
And then there were a lot of theories about Bran being evil. You've read this?
Well,
stuff?
the theory
he
about
was
him
the Night
being
King.
The Night King, yeah.
Well, no, but there are some that weren't even this is even after the Night King died.
Okay.
People sort of adjusted their theories to Bran is evil. He was taking out the competition, and he's trying to do. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
To be honest,
That's such
I don't
a
really
loose theory.
I don't subscribe to those theories. When it comes to these are the same people who think that killing Dany last episode was like sexist instead of.
See,
and I've read a lot about that, and these are people who just hate Bran.
Yeah.
And they just want to go after him for some reason.
Right.
But it is interesting.
Well, I think some
the way
reason is that the actor sucks. Can we be clear on that?
Yeah.
Like, I just think a lot of this hatred comes from
part of it.
Just a very weird performance and not much to do.
I mean, my
there's
hatred
also-
for him
there's
just comes
also
from
here-
everything to do with him. Like, answer a damn question with an answer other than, oh, I'm the three-eyed raven. Like, no, fuck you. Answer the fucking question.
But it is obvious that he maneuvered everything to this point, knowing that he would ascend to the throne,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
And he says, like, I don't want to be king, but at the same time he says, why do you think I came all this way?
Right.
So there's some fucky shit going on here.
Well, it's...
Good phrase.
Right?
Well, I mean, and it's one of those things where some people might see that as manipulating everything. Some people might see it as... Because he basically knows everything, he knows that they're never going to agree and they might fall into another war over who's going to sit, and he's the only one who they're all like, okay, yeah, I'm fine with that.
And is there some sort of message about compromise? I mean, they say several times in the episode, based on several different situations, well, nobody's really happy, so I suppose that's the best compromise.
Yeah, especially with the whole Jon thing, yeah.
Is that what they're even trying to say by picking Bran to sit on the throne because they know the fans aren't going to be happy? They're saying, look, it's the best compromise. Like, are they trying to make a statement about that?
I guess. Yeah, I mean, okay. So then the decision was we're going to make a bad decision. Like, I don't know. That feels a little too meta.
we're gonna make the best decision.
Right. And the best decision doesn't always feel good.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of a commentary on democracy in general. It's a horrible system, but it's the best horrible system we have.
Well,
is what people say, right?
I did see this interesting tweet. I think it was from Patton Oswalt this morning, who said that the best scene of the whole finale, or at least the most optimistic scene of the whole finale, was the council hanging out at the table and discussing like road repairs.
Yeah.
And he was saying that's what a happy ending looks like. That is what allows democracy to function. Just people in rooms talking about the mundane shit. Like, you can't rule in a civilized world with fire and blood.
Well, and I think that's really evident even just slightly before that, when the thing everybody wanted to know was, where's the dragon?
Yeah.
And Bran's like, oh, no, I'll find him. And then we don't follow him. We follow we need ships. Do we have money for ships? Oh, we do. Okay, well, you want to see what they're... Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Exactly.
Like, it's...
Like, that I found kind of cool, that the happy ending didn't look like all sunshines and rainbows. It looked like order, and it looked like regular life. So that I appreciate. And listen, there are glimpses of it in this episode. I appreciated a lot of it. I'm still struggling to figure out exactly what I'm supposed to learn, though. And I guess, is the flaw the finale, or is the flaw the development of Bran's character? I think you could argue that it's both.
I think you could argue that it's both, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily even a flaw or just, they're just not trying to say what we expected them to try to say. But I read a fantastic article.
Okay.
And it's an article from Wired called "Why the Writing in Game of Thrones Season 8 Feels Off."
Uh-huh.
And this article came out the 16th, so 4 days ago before Episode 6 premiered, between Episode 5 and Episode 6.
Yep.
And they're basically talking about, everybody getting into this season, it felt off. It felt different. And I actually would love to get the perspective of somebody who's just starting to watch Game of Thrones now, and they're binging their way through all the seasons, and they suddenly get to season 8 with no year waiting between.
Right.
And just feel the difference.
Sure.
Like, palpable. But they talk about the style of writing that George's writing in particular that led to this. There's these two type of writers they call plotters and pantsers. Plotters, sort of plant all of these seeds and let them grow, and pantsers sort of just fly by the seat of their pants when they're writing. They just let things happen as they happen rather than, working towards things.
Right.
And they talk about George R. R. Martin as a planter or a plotter, and he has this garden of different characters and storylines, and it gets overgrown and it's hard to control.
Yeah.
All right, and that's where this picks up, and I'm going to read this for you. So that's why Game of Thrones feels different now. A show that had been about our inability to escape the past became about the spectacle of the present. Characters with incredible depth and agency, all the more rope with which to hang themselves, became whatever the moment needed them to be. They took uncharacteristic actions and made uncharacteristically bad decisions so the required events could unfold with the appropriate stakes. Characters were spared the death they'd sown so they'd be available for later scenes. Organic consequences gave way to contrivance. Gone was the conflict between complicated people and incompatible goals. Gray morality turned black and white. Characters rushed through their foreshadowed arcs for the thinnest of reasons, or in some cases reversed their arcs entirely. The characters weren't in charge anymore. The ending was. So, that, I think, really... And this is before the finale premiered. And I just think about how spot on they really were with all of that.
Well put, Wired. Well put.
And I... Let me get the author's name just so we can give him some credit.
Yeah, give him some credit.
Daniel Silvermint.
Okay.
From Wired.
Well put.
So...
it was basically my observation last week, but put way more articulately. So good on him.
No, it's exactly what we were... I was thinking it's exactly what we were saying, just way more articulate.
Yes.
So this is before the ending got there. Like the ending was in control at this point.
Sure. Yeah,
But-
that's... Yes. And look, it's not really Benioff and Weiss's fault. I do want to say this. Like,
The next line in that article is no one's to blame. Really,
Yeah.
it's nobody's fault.
well, here's what's to blame. The method in which they're writing this show. I don't think any piece of art has ever been written quite this way, where you have a writer with a very distinct vision and a lot of deep intention in his writing, constructing novels over 2 decades, and then in the 11th hour at the goal line, someone else takes the ball and tries running it into the end zone. That doesn't happen. You very rarely do you see the baton being passed in that sort of way. And again, I don't know if there's a better way to do this. I guess in an ideal world, George finishes the books, HBO waits until George finishes the books, and then other writers take over the show. I don't think that's feasible. And I also don't think it's quite fair to Benioff and Weiss, who, credit to them, did an awesome job through 6 seasons on the show. I just think like it's an impossible story to tell in this way. You're missing a lot of subtext and a lot of gray area by missing out on the 2 novels. And I'm not sure if you gave me a whiteboard with some bullet points on how the show is supposed to unfold, I would have done a better job getting there.
Well,
Right.
and I think they didn't... At that point, they said, well, we've told the story with what we have so far, and all we have left is the end. So let's
Yes.
just get there.
Right.
And it felt that way.
Well,
for sure.
Well, and even going into this season, George R.R. said, like, the ending's going to be similar, but I don't know how it's going to play out in the books.
Let me ask you a question. Would you have preferred that George not say a word to Benioff and Weiss, and they continued on and wrote their own ending?
Yes.
You would have preferred that?
Yes.
I don't know.
Because I
don't know how much credit to give them for the actual for how good the show was up until that point.
Yeah.
To be honest, because they were working with George until season 7, I think, or yeah, they didn't work with George this season very much. I know that. So I don't know if the awesome character development and dialogue was them or George. I don't know if...
Well, I think we give him a credit for the dialogue at least. Like, we don't necessarily give
George
him...
wrote half the scripts.
No, he didn't.
Didn't he? I'm pretty sure he wrote a lot of it.
Nah. He wrote maybe a couple episodes. No, he didn't write most of the scripts. Not at all.
I mean, he was mainly on just to make sure that the lore and everything fell in line with.
Well, but yeah, he had a pretty heavy influence.
He was in the room.
Especially
he was in the writer's room.
Yeah, no, he was definitely there. But
Yeah.
I don't think he is as responsible for,
I don't know if they would have written a better ending or not, though. I don't know.
Well, the thing is I don't know if they would have written a better ending. But
they would have. The journey to their ending would have been more coherent.
And I think their ending, had they not been given the information beforehand, would have been a way more organic feeling. And I think in that way, it might not have been better, but I think more people would be accepting of it because of how they got there, not necessarily what it was.
I'm not sure people would have been more accepting of it. I know I would have been more accepting of it. Just because I feel like that's how TV is traditionally written. And I embrace traditional TV. Like the creators of Breaking Bad, they had no idea how the thing was going to end before they wrote it. And so, that to me, like Better Call Saul, for example, is a show where if you were pitching it when it first began, it would have been done in 3 seasons. But they just continued to write to the characters. That's what drives television. It's characters.
I see what you mean.
So, and they're now 4 seasons in, and like they've barely done anything plot wise, but it could go on for 10 seasons because the characters are so strong and they've listened to the characters and they've adjusted their preconceived notions based on what they think the characters will do. Barry, a show that was on HBO last night, is another perfect example of this. Like they did some shit last night that I'm not sure they would have done had they plotted the whole thing out before season 1 began. Like they're moving at like a breakneck pace, and I'm not sure how far the show's going to be able to go because so much shit is going down, but it felt organic, right? And so sometimes ending be damned. Like sometimes you just have to write to the people.
Yeah.
Who cares about the ending to a certain extent?
Here, I mean, I was saying this a couple weeks ago on Twitter. I don't know if you guys were following it at all, but there's no real reason, though, they had to stop this year.
No. Well,
and they could have. It still would have had the same problem to a degree, but it definitely felt like they were kind of just rushing toward. They railroaded towards the ending, and they could have kept it going a couple more years and been like, okay, how can we, without any books to work off of, more organically try to get to this ending?
I even feel like if they stuck with the last 2 seasons being 10 episodes.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's all
they had to just mash everything into.
I think 7 more episodes gets the job done perfectly.
Yeah,
I really do.
I think it's fine. Just works out to, because the pacing of the other seasons felt. I hate using the word better, but they felt better.
They were.
Well, they had like 20-minute just conversations.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that anymore. They stopped doing that.
The only episode we got, it was episode 2. That was the only one that felt like old school Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Preparing for the battle.
Yeah.
And the rest was just spectacle, which, I mean, whatever. You're allowed to do
and they could have done more build up to Dany losing her shit.
Yep.
Which I think a lot of people complained about.
Yeah, I think you needed a few more scenes.
Because it just all of a sudden she just sort of snapped.
Yeah.
I mean, they hinted at it, but it wasn't. They didn't build up to it. It was just, nope, she's gone.
They were Easter eggs more than they were character development.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Last season, 3 more episodes to make the relationship between Jon and Dany believable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would have been really helpful.
And also cutting that stupid kidnap the zombie plan would have been pretty good too, but that's a story for another day.
That was kind of dumb.
Yeah, you think?
Actually letting Cersei do something this season.
Oh,
yeah.
You mean let the best actress on the show act? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Besides her saying, bring them here.
What a concept.
I mean,
that would have been fine. I would have liked that.
What a concept.
I would have loved one episode that was Cersei based.
Yeah.
The way I put this in my notes here is I had a problem with this season in particular. I had a problem with the season, not with the last 2 episodes or episode 2, really. I think those episodes were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously not a problem with the show as a whole. Just with this season, the arc. And again, I didn't have a problem with the capital P plot of where the show was going.
Yeah.
I had a problem with the lowercase p plot of the actual like events happening in the episodes that just were not coherent, didn't make sense, felt rushed. You know,
Well put. Look,
there are a lot of story. This is a show that is a collection of many storylines, and they cut so many of them short just to kind of wrap up one.
They're going from a 5-lane highway to a 2-lane highway with,
and we know how that works in
merge.
Waterbury.
we do. I've experienced that. I think it's also important to point out that David Benioff and D.B. Weiss have just been given the keys to Star Wars, and I'm
Were
not.
they?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing the next trilogy. They're writing it, and I don't know if they're directing it, but presumably they would be put in charge of that hiring process.
And it seems like they were wrapping it up for their own reasons.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I don't know. If Kathleen Kennedy is banging on my door and, like, a lot of money is on the other side, I'm not saying they rushed their way out of Game of Thrones just to get to Star Wars, but there are other considerations.
They moved up the timeline.
Yeah. And that happened, especially
I
some
think
of these
you're right,
actors,
though.
too.
7 more episodes.
Yeah.
7 more episodes, actually, without extending it another 2 years, because everybody would have gotten 2 years older.
Yeah.
And that would have caused, lots of issues. Because obviously the first season took place over, like, I feel like 6 months or something. And this last season took place over, like, 4 days.
Right.
Yeah. It's 8 full seasons, I think, would have been the perfect amount.
I don't think that's too much to ask.
No.
And I think you can still do it and then still let Sansa take over the X-Men universe, and you could still let Arya do her Netflix miniseries, and everybody's fine. Just 7 more episodes. And Benioff and Weiss can go on and make bounty hunter movies. It's cool.
So
Yeah.
what could they have done to make the Bran ending, the Bran being king, more believable? Or
I'm going to say just make the character likable.
Yeah.
no, like to lead up to you actually expecting it, I guess. Or is
Well,
it better
no-
that you don't expect it? I mean, it was kind of the one last Game of Thrones twist.
Yeah, I guess, but it's a choice where if you like a character, you're going to spend time with them. If they just threw in a bunch of brand shit, but they didn't fix the character, for lack of a better word, nobody would care. Nobody would.
Is he a good king?
I think he'll be a good
We don't
king,
know.
but it's...
Yes, exactly
but
right.
there's no evidence to prove if he is or if he is. We're just going on feeling.
We don't know. You're 100% right. We don't know.
He picks good advisors of who's left.
Okay,
Yeah.
so did Danny. Look how that turned
Yeah,
out.
Danny picked great
Right.
advisors.
Well, if she didn't listen to him, is the difference.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean...
but like we have proof that Sansa would be great as queen.
Sure.
We had proof that Jon would be fine.
Right.
We had proof that even Tyrion would be okay.
I don't know.
But there
John
was-
had that goddamn Stark flaw,
Yes.
Well, yeah.
just like through and through. The same flaw that got every other Stark killed.
Right. Which, I'm cool with him actually going...
Can't zigzag?
I'm cool with him going to the Night's Watch.
I'm.
That took me a second.
It seems like everybody got what they wanted in show,
Yes.
but it just felt sort of ham-fisted.
It did become clear to me that John was not meant to rule.
Yeah.
And not only did he not want the title, he also wasn't built for it. Like, his plans were shitty. They were executed shittily. He hitched his
He got
wagon
lucky
to the
a
wrong
lot.
horse. Yeah.
I always talked about this. Daenerys was a much better war commander than she was queen.
She was
Jon
a
was
good
much-
strategist.
And Jon was a much better leader than he was war commander.
Sure.
All
Yes.
of his military strategies were terrible, and he should have died 100,000 times.
It's like I've always said about James Bond. Not a good spy, very lucky. That's how Jon survived till the end.
Let's talk about those two characters for a second. I want to ask if you were convinced by their conversation in the throne room, just regarding Danny's motivations. Because I think in a lot of ways, the finale tried legitimizing what happened in the last episode.
Yeah.
And you could almost hear Benioff and Weiss being like, all right, I know you guys don't exactly buy it, but here's our best argument. And so you have these explanations. Tyrion saying to Jon, if you truly believe that you were on the right side of history, you might do something like that as well.
Yeah.
And that's why Dany is so dangerous. She believes that she's vindicated. She's been going around killing slavers, killing warlords, killing the Khals, and we cheer her on because we consider those men bad men. But the second she turns her dragon against the good guys, quote unquote, we're outraged by it. Were you, I guess, convinced, and if you felt differently about episode 5, I'd like to hear more. Were you convinced by this explanation for Dany's character turn, and do you think they did enough work after the fact?
I think they did as much as they could with the episodes they had, but ultimately, they should have shown, not told.
Okay.
It felt, at least to me, especially with this episode, it felt like all of Dany's story was basically a form of crisis management.
Okay.
Like, this happened. Now everybody else around her has to be like, no, it's fine. It's fine. We'll work it out.
Sure.
But it doesn't excuse anything that happened. It doesn't really explain it.
I don't necessarily mean excuse.
Well, no, but it doesn't explain.
Do you believe that she would do it? Because I know the big criticism with episode 5 is they didn't believe Dany would do that, given what we knew about her.
I called it start of the season.
Did you believe it when it happened on a character level?
No, because we didn't see her development into this person.
It
If
was
we
a
had-
rushed development.
And
we
was it
had
a
an
little
ep- if we-
little too late with that conversation, though, in the finale?
This is why I made the distinction between capital P and lowercase p plot.
Yeah.
Because in a capital P plot, it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because for the story to go where it was going to go and where, there's enough in the books and in the show to make the case for Dany being a Targaryen to do this, right?
Yes.
But there wasn't enough case in the last few episodes to say that Daenerys, the character, would have done that.
Right.
At that moment.
So you
Right.
didn't. So you didn't care about those conversations in the finale. Then you
No,
thought
they were helpful, but I think, like you said, too little, too late.
too little, too late.
Yeah.
And again, yeah, I think the major flaw there. I mean, the pacing and the character decisions and this lowercase p plot all sort of feed into each other. With there just wasn't enough. They cut themselves too short, and there wasn't enough time to really do it all justice.
My friend Alex Lawson came up with a great ending for this show. I have to give him full credit. On the way to the airport this morning, he was telling me about this. I had to drive him. So you don't have Sam tell Jon about his parentage. You maybe like lightly hint at it. Maybe you have Bran say something like, you don't know the truth. There's something off. You don't know the whole story. Then he's there at the end with Dany. He stabs Dany. Drogon gets pissed. Begins breathing fire on Jon, and he survives. Close off, and he
Can't do it.
No.
Can't do it.
No.
Why?
Because he already has been burned before.
Oh,
Yeah.
when?
Season 2 at the Wall, when he tried fighting a white with a lantern and he burned his hand.
Oh, damn it!
Yeah.
And that's like a big thing in the books that they don't really touch upon in the show. Yeah. But I did actually, I did have this
like an
idea.
afterthought. It was like,
I
oh,
had
he's
this
burned, but they don't
idea
burn.
of Dany getting mad at Jon, saying Dracarys, and the dragon not listening to her,
Ah, okay, yeah, that too.
which I thought would have been fun.
Right.
And that sort of did happen in a way. The dragon didn't attack Jon; he burned the throne.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was something to that, I think. And like you said, the dragon, that was a really incredible scene.
Yeah. I'm still not sure what exactly it means, but I did like the scene. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
like
know
it's
either.
tough
He
to
took
understand,
Dany and left,
but
and I mean, wasn't that really fucking sad? Hold on,
Go ahead.
Can we just for a second, like, picture a puppy? Don't picture
Yeah,
a dragon.
I know,
Picture
all
a
I was thinking
puppy
was like
and just rolling over and just being like, "Mom, wake up!"
it's like,
Like,
the
that's
scene. It's like the
fucking
scene with
sad.
Simba when he's telling, "Hey, wake up, Dad."
That's
yeah.
so sad. And then all of a sudden, it's a giant fire-breathing lizard who can burn thousands of swords to molten nothing.
Yes.
But
Iron.
it was sad. I also really wanted Dany to sit on the throne and cut herself. in one of those, because they always say the throne is made of swords to remind you that being the king should not be comfortable.
Yeah.
And those who sit on the throne and get cuts are generally not meant to rule because they got too comfortable, kind of thing. That's sort of like supposed to be one of the things about the throne being made of swords. And so I kind of wanted Danny to sit and get cut.
Interesting.
Just a little, just like a little nick, and just,
Yeah.
I think that would have been a nice little.
There's a lot of showing that could have happened, but really there was just a lot of telling. And that's, I guess the flaw of this season.
Well,
And it's the one gripe that you can have with Benioff and Weiss is that they could have come up with creative ways to explain these things visually.
Well, and it's one of those things where this whole season was the things that should have been spoken were showed, and the things that should have been showed were spoken.
Yeah.
Like everything just felt backwards from how it should have played out.
Yeah. No, because they had the bullet points and they had to get to them.
Right.
And my God, I don't know how many times this season we had to have the same conversation with John and a miscellaneous character talking about who his parents were.
Yeah.
Felt like
Well,
we had
I'm
that
glad they
conversation 5 times.
They eventually did decide to skip it.
Yeah.
Like when he was telling Sansa and Arya, they just skipped it.
And
Which
it's
was
funny.
Like, great.
People had a problem with that. People were like,
yeah,
why
I
didn't
heard
you
about
show that
that.
reaction? And I'm like, really? We have to see the same conversation again?
Well, and it's one of those
The
things
reaction was shown when Sansa told Tyrion.
Yeah.
where immediately,
That was the reaction.
that was the
Got it.
reaction.
No, I'm with
You know?
you.
I'm also, do you want to just like touch upon each character really quick and just say like, talk about their ending in
Sure.
particular?
Go for it. Who do you want to do first?
So I guess we're already talking about John. He
I
goes
like the
back
ending.
to-
I like
He
the
goes
ending.
back to the north to the Night's Watch. That's his punishment. Half the people want him dead. The other half want him to be king.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the whole compromise. It's the best of, a bad situation.
Does he become the Lord Commander again?
See,
That's what I took it as.
I read that as he was hanging out with the wildlings for the rest of
Yeah,
his
he
life.
went north from the wall is what I got. But when that scene started, I thought he was going to the Weirwood tree and I thought they were going to end the show with "and now my watch begins" and just cut,
Oh.
which I would have liked. But I also
that
had
would have
a
been too
theory that-
poetic, though, is the thing.
Yeah. I also had a theory that when he was walking towards the north, they were going to find grass coming down from the north and sort of lead into that dream of spring. But they didn't do either of those things. They just sort of had him walking off with the wildlings, which was fine.
Sure.
I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with it.
I was expecting something a little more poetic, I suppose.
Well, with John, his big thing was always, look, I am who I am. I try my best, and
But he's not who he is. That's the problem.
well, no,
been the problem the whole fucking time.
Well, no, but deep down, well, okay, fuck you, fuck you and your little shit. But to him, the only place he ever felt comfortable was beyond the wall.
Right.
And I think it was the perfect. I think it's the only thing he ever wanted was to go back up there and be in the area he felt comfortable with the most.
He was never meant to rule, man. He was never meant to be a king.
No,
was- he
I
was
kind of
just
do
meant
agree
to
with
be.
you.
Yeah. And
And this is why when back in like season 2 or whatever, season 3, I always thought John wasn't going to be the king. I thought he was going to stop the Night King, but I didn't think he was going to rule.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
But that felt right. I liked his ending. Yes, I did.
and a lot of people who got mad last episode about John leaving Ghost behind,
Yeah, there
I
you
think
go.
they got their closure.
All right, all you
So-
fan servicey fucks. There you go.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Tormund
I was-
Giantsbane tells John this is where you belong, and he goes back, and it's nice.
at the party I was at, when John gets back to the wall, everyone was like, "Fucking pet Ghost,
Yeah.
fucking pat him,
Yeah.
do something." And I'm like, guys, fucking shut up.
It was a trivia question during Game of Thrones HQ this week.
Yeah, it was.
Which we played at J. Timothy's, Nick.
and he won what, 20?
I won 23
cents?
cents. It was all questions about season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty good. Who else?
Let's jump into Arya really quick.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Well, here's
I get it.
I was kind of thinking, I'm like, Arya's storyline was done.
It was
In
done
fact,
with what?
Let's talk about this. Why the fuck did she even go to King's Landing?
Because they needed a point of view character. That's why.
Yeah.
Is that all it was?
That's what it was. It was
and then
the
why
eyes
did she?
with which
what's
we
up
saw
with
the battle.
horse? Because we didn't talk about the horse at all. At the
Okay,
end of
that's a
episode
you
5.
question, Nick. Because apparently there was a horse reference in the books. Is that right?
No.
I heard somewhat that there was a white horse discussed.
Okay, well, this book hasn't come out yet, so I don't know what they're talking about. Because
I heard there was a prophecy about a white horse.
a prophecy about a white horse.
That's
Well, I'm
what
gonna
I
have to
heard.
research that really quick, but it seemed pretty weird.
Yeah, no, you're sort of led to believe that she's the prince who was promised,
Yeah.
and she's
That's
going
fine.
to be the one that
She's-
kills Danny.
Yeah, they do a lot of what I kind of like is they do a lot of this leading about who is this Azor Ahai, and the answer is nobody.
Yeah.
There is no fucking Azor Ahai.
The answer
Azor Ahai
is
was a legend from 1,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, and he's dead. And this is not that.
the answer is who is it? It's whoever the fuck you want it to believe, because that's who's you're gonna get your hope from.
Well, because you have half of
It's just another religion in Westeros, is what it boils down to.
right, and half of the prophecies point to one person, point to another person, then point to another person. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked that in general, but so her storyline was done though. Arya's storyline was done
With the Night King?
and yeah, it was done episode 3. It just was.
I have a question. Why is the faceless man thing a thing if they're not going to use it past Walder Frey? Or I guess, no, they did it with Littlefinger. So she goes to badass camp,
Yeah.
badass summer camp, and she's learning how to become a ninja.
They could have just taught her to be an assassin without the faceless man.
Right.
thing.
So they go through this whole thing. I am no one. I am no one. That. By the way, that plot line never made much sense to me. How you spend 2 seasons. It was like basically 2
Yeah, it
seasons
was-
with the faceless men, right? And she's learning how to become no one. And then at the end of the whole thing, she grabs her sword and says, I am Arya Stark.
Yeah.
And that actually, I did kind of have a small issue. This seems stupid, but it kind of bothered me a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Was when she's sailing off the front of she's sailing west. We should talk about where she's doing.
Oh,
she's
God.
decided.
Is this going to be a physics lecture? An hour 15 into
no.
Game of Thrones podcast?
No,
No.
nothing like that.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just
Please,
saying
that'll
we
come
didn't
from
actually.
me.
I'm saying we haven't actually explained what she does at the end of the show, so I'm just touching upon it really quick before I get on my rant.
Okay.
So she's sailing west to see what's west of Westeros,
yeah.
because nobody knows, and so she's basically just like, I'm gonna go adventure. That's where she's going. When
I
she's on the
am Marco
boat,
Polo.
when she's on the boat, the front of the boat has a direwolf and the sail's a big direwolf, and that sort of touches upon that. For 2 whole seasons, she's I am no one, and now she's just like, I'm Arya motherfucking Stark, bitch. Like, it doesn't really feel right.
I think they were playing cleanup, because this entire last season was about how she out of nowhere is just, no, this we're all a family now.
Where did the books end with her?
Oh, that's a good question. I think she had just returned to Westeros from
Okay.
Essos.
Okay.
I don't think she had killed Walder Frey yet.
Does any of that stuff sound familiar where she's like, I'm actually Arya Stark and
Yes.
I love my family?
Well, as she's leaving Essos, they say, you are no one, and I think she says, no, I'm Arya Stark, or something like that. And so Needle, her little sword, I'm just going to get on a little tangent here.
Okay.
When she goes to Essos and joins this group, they tell her she has to give up all of her belongings, and so she throws all of her belongings away, except for Needle.
Right.
And what she buries it under some stones somewhere. And when she's leaving Essos, finally, she goes back and retrieves Needle, and that's sort of her saying, like, I am Arya Stark.
And that's how it happened on the show, right?
Yeah,
They
that's
did
how it
exact
happened on the
same
show.
thing, Yeah.
Yeah. So, that does happen. She does sort of leave that behind.
I get you.
But it is kind of weird, though, that they did spend so much time with that and not really
And it
fully.
didn't really pay off.
They could have just taught her how to be an assassin or how to be a badass.
Yeah.
I think they wanted to add some sort of mystical affect to it.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Or it's an example of the show valuing that storyline more than George did, which I think happened from time to time. Like, and, the Dorne stuff, for example, is something clearly George really cared about and the writers of the show didn't. And I think in the case of Arya, Macy Williams is such a dynamic performer, and I think one of the most beloved characters on the show, that if she's going to be in Ninja Camp for 2 seasons, we're going to spend a lot of time in Ninja Camp because we have to spend time with her.
There's also this weird thing that happened where after book 3, George wanted book 4 or the next part to take place 5 years later. but he couldn't justify it in his mind, so he decided to introduce a bunch of new characters and storylines.
Right.
To explain what happened in those 5 years. And that's sort of another example of one of those things. So Dorne, all of that stuff, that was just filler.
Well,
and
filler, but also
and that's why
cut
they ended
short,
it in the show.
Cut short because it sucked. I think that's part of it too.
A lot of it gets cut short in the books too, it feels like, or it feels like it's not going anywhere long term.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily think that was the show not doing it justice. I think that was just the type of writer George is.
Uh-huh.
If you read the books, one of my biggest gripes, I love the books, but one of my biggest gripes with it is he is an over-explainer.
Yeah.
With
he adds
everything.
detail. Yeah, he'll spend paragraphs describing a feast.
Sure. Which I kind of dig. I kind of dig
I don't
that
mind
about
it. It
writers.
helps you get into it, but at the same time, it's, you know, when you're doing that with plot lines and characters, it just gets a little confusing after a while, and it seems like where are we going?
So can we finally put to rest that Lady Stoneheart not coming back? Can we finally? Can all
No,
the
I think
fans-
she's still coming back. She's still coming back.
Can everybody fuck off with that whole grievance?
No, that was pretty clear after season 4 that they weren't going to do it.
I think that's accurate. No Lady Stoneheart, no Aegon, I guess, is what we were waiting for. Aegon Targaryen?
There's some interesting... I was reading about how... there's this character Aegon, and I think there's this other character. I might be getting mixed up, so somebody can correct me, I guess, but there's this character who's older, who was raising Aegon all of these years, and he was Rhaegar's best friend way back in the day. And when he was in King's Landing the day Rhaegar got killed by Robert Baratheon, they were also ringing the bells in surrender.
Ah.
And there was some theory about how that character, who at the point in the book where the book stopped was getting ready to try and attack King's Landing, there was supposed to be something of him maybe hearing the bells would cause him to relive that time a long time ago. Okay. And maybe he would be the one to burn King's Landing to the ground, and they were going to do something else with Dany.
I don't see that happening, though.
Yeah, I don't really know.
I see that ending being pretty definitive. Maybe not the Bran part, maybe not all the stuff leading up to it, but Dany burning the city definitely felt like from
right.
George. Yeah, that
right in a strange way.
In the context of that's a George R.R. Martin move.
Yeah.
You know, that just felt like a twist that he would come up with. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I guess what other characters? Do we want to talk about Sansa?
I don't know if there's too much to say, but she separates. So even when Bran gets crowned king, she basically says, you know, Bran, I can't vote for you because the North is its own kingdom. Yeah. She says, I refuse to accept, or I refuse to bend the knee to you, essentially.
Basically. Well, yeah, because this whole season was, the North is its own thing. Like, we're going to deal with the North. Once we leave the North, fuck the North. We're not going, like, it's... They treated it like when Dany was over in Essos, where it's like, Essos is over there, let's deal with that stuff, and that has really no implications over in Westeros. It was the same thing with the North and basically everything else.
This was... I've never been a huge fan of Sansa. This has been Sansa's strongest season, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of her, either.
Definitely think she'll be good as a ruler going forward.
I wanted more of her this year, though. I'll be honest with you.
I don't know if there was more there. Again, I don't know if there was much more for her to do.
Well, I don't know. She seemed like a pretty pivotal person in the Dany versus Jon conflict.
Again, yeah, add a few more episodes of Jon and Dany's relationship being more believable and her driving a wedge into it.
Right.
You know,
but also
that would have been nice.
I needed to believe exactly why Sansa believed what she believed. Like what she saw in Dany.
Yeah, I would have liked that if she was seeing things that Jon wasn't able to see.
Just hated her.
Right. Just for the sake of plot. That's all it was. Just because she liked her brother and she wanted him to rule.
I think it was more she didn't want the North to bend the knee kind of deal.
Right. But again, I need a little more justification for that. And they yada-yada'd it just for time purposes. And also, like, we barely got her in not only the second to last episode, she wasn't in it at all, but then the final episode, she was in for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
In that, again, horribly stiff scene with the council.
when the blackfish stood up and he tried to be like, well, I can be the king.
And she was just
giving
like,
a
no,
speech.
fuck you.
She's like, Uncle, sit down. You look like an idiot. Like, that was great.
And then he like stumbles and slams his sword on something.
Nobody wants the blackfish to be the king.
Yeah,
Let's
he
be
tripped.
fucking
He tripped
real.
over the water bottle that was sitting there on set. How do you leave two like objects from the real world?
Wait, was it really a water bottle?
Yeah, did you see that?
No.
So
I thought you were making a joke.
No, first
No.
was the Starbucks cup. Now there's a plastic water bottle sitting next to Sam's leg. How do you make the same mistake twice? I don't understand this.
How do you not, like, after a few episodes ago, just go, let's just check all the footage again?
Get an intern.
Yeah.
You're the avoid the Starbucks cup guy. That's your job. There's like 5 scenes in this episode. It can't be that hard. Just look for the Starbucks cup.
Yeah.
You know, Michaela's father was saying, well, maybe they did it on purpose to get, like, media attention. I'm like, I don't think they need media attention,
They
though.
definitely do not need media attention.
You know
Like,
who
they didn't
doesn't
leave the
need
Starbucks
You know
cup
who
for-
doesn't need media attention? The media. That's what Game of Thrones is. They're literally popular media. They don't need the attention.
You know, now that I think about it, in King's Landing, I'm pretty sure I saw like a Domino's sign.
Not enough product placement in this season.
What about Brienne's ending? I liked hers.
I liked it.
Yeah,
It's
Brienne's a
definitely
good
a lot
character.
stronger than the last time they showed Brienne, where they completely 180'd everything
Where she's
she'd been working
fucking
towards.
weeping over Jamie.
Yeah, are you kidding me?
Don't
She's
start.
a strong fucking woman.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah.
Doesn't need.
That was that. Yeah.
That whole
It just felt
storyline
like
was
they reduced her very quickly by being like, she lost her virginity and now she's in love with this man. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just-
But now she's, you know,
I didn't like that.
commander of the King's Guard. And
No, they used her as a plot contrivance for Jamie to return to Cersei.
Yes.
And just
But
to
I
make
did-
that
I
moment
liked
land
the-
harder. That's all it was.
Right.
And it was very fan servicey, by the way. It was like, oh, these two seem to have a lot of sexual tension, so let's finally pay it off. And that never works in TV. That's one of my big pet peeves when
No,
it
you
comes
leave
to
the
TV
tension.
shows.
Tension's good.
Yeah, man. It just felt like I never bought it. When they had sex, I'm like, I never bought they were in love. This
Yeah.
whole show, the one thing I've been taught is that Jamie and Cersei belong with each other. You know, and obviously they got there, and I'm glad they got
How
there.
about that scene with Tyrion over their bodies? That was.
You liked it?
You didn't like it?
I loved it.
A little drawn out, a little slow.
No, I dug it. I dug it a lot.
Okay,
I think you're wrong.
all right, fine. Again, this could have been done in 45 minutes, and it was an hour 20. And if I'm cutting 10 minutes, that's what I would have cut.
The only sort of ending that a character ending that I'm mad about or disappointed in, I guess, would be I really this whole season wanted Grey Worm to fucking die.
A lot of people said that.
I really wanted Jon to just run him through with Longclaw or something.
Interesting character choice.
They made the death of Missandei really turn him.
Yeah.
It was the Anakin Skywalker moment.
yeah.
Yes.
Is
Yeah,
what
it
was.
is what it was.
Yeah.
It was Padme dying.
But I kind of like that in a way.
I thought it was an interesting choice.
I mean, it's
He was supposed to be this emotionless shell. His only motivation is to do what he's commanded.
right.
And love and Daenerys breaking the chains, so to speak, taught him that he can be his own person and he can be guided by emotions. And
But
so
that
even
corrupted him, though.
but
and even as flawed as it was,
Right.
I mean, no,
I think it was kind of a nice choice to keep him alive. And
I
didn't mind it as
understand showing his vulnerability to emotions, because anybody who's like, "Oh, I don't feel emotions," is a bad character, because there's just nothing you can do with them.
Or they can say they don't show emotions, but they still need to express emotions.
Yeah,
Yes, that's part of the character building.
yeah. But it seemed less like, oh, here's some emotions that this character has, to, oh, now we're reducing him down to a singular emotion, and this is his character now.
And also sort of a black and white villain, I think, as you implied earlier.
right, with the article, they said the gray. I actually think of him because his name is Grey Worm. They said the gray became black and white, and
Right.
yeah.
you know, and it's
And that's a little disappointing, because that's another thing the show does really, really well, is paint characters in the gray area.
I would have loved, like, if they had a couple more episodes, they could have just had a nice scene with him just crying alone.
Sure.
You know? And that would have just helped it that much.
And that would have shown to me that this character really is just upset about the whole thing, and he's trying to find a way to deal with it.
He lost his love, and he lost his queen, and therefore he lost his purpose in a strange land.
Yeah, but now it's just, he's pissed.
But he also but believes that he's doing these things for the right reason. Even after death, he still believes he's serving his queen, which I thought was kind of poignant, even though... So I kind of do wish that it wasn't played for just, like, mustache-twirling villain stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I do wish that they added a little more nuance.
Well, I would have liked, maybe after Danny had died, him to... Because he was just still straight cold and mean to basically everyone. If they showed... They could show him being mean and cold, but just tone it down enough to maybe he's realizing, well, maybe, okay, what's the point of it all now? I was told to do something, I'm going to do it, but why?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of a bittersweet ending, I guess, for him. That's fair. We talked Brienne. Davos, I guess, didn't really have much room to shine.
No.
Well, you know, as soon as they introduce Davos as a character, you just know he's going to be master of ships.
You know he's going to do well, but when you realize he's done well, you're like, okay, yeah, okay.
For a lot of reasons, I mean, this might seem like kind of stupid, but you know, you remember when he first was introduced, he was with Stannis.
Sure.
And I don't know if you remember this, but before Stannis was, running his election campaign for king, he was master of ships.
He was master of ships, and he was in charge of the...
So, you know, and Davos is wise. Of course, he's going to be on the council. He's been literally at the right hand of,
several
4 different, possible contenders at this point.
Yeah.
So of course he was going to be that. It just was one of those things that made sense. Mm-hmm. Bronn, I actually liked it again.
I liked Bronn.
Bronn was weak this season in general, but
Bronn is a character that they wanted off of this show early on, but HBO was like, no, he's an awesome performer. The fans like him. Keep him. And I think George even explicitly said that at one point.
Did you know that he used to date Lena Headey?
Yes, I did know that.
Really?
You heard about that? So they never filmed a scene together.
Yeah.
Because they hate each other.
Yeah, they had a pretty ugly breakup.
Oh, okay.
Specifically, Lena Headey hates him.
Yes.
Is my understanding.
Oh, okay.
And she told the writers, she's like, if we need to be in a scene together, you find a way to write it that we don't.
So that scene with Qyburn at the beginning giving the bow and arrow to Bronn.
Yeah.
Theoretically, that should have been Cersei.
I was going to say that it seemed a little weird that Cersei wasn't the one talking to him, but now it makes a lot of sense.
So that's why they sent him in.
Yeah.
Hates him. But, Bronn, again, we could have had a lot more of him if we had more episodes, and it would have felt less like, oh, remember this guy? Like...
And I guess finally, let's talk about the imp, Tyrion Lannister.
What, Tyrion?
Yeah.
Well, hold on. I also have an issue with Sir Podrick.
Oh,
I feel like that was just we just sort of got. It was like if somebody had a fish.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, you like this fish? Boom! Here's it in your face, and then that was it. Because like people really, really like Pod.
That's fine. I'm fine with him being a knight.
I'm fine with that, but
he's great with a sword.
What? Is he great with a sword?
And also a weapon. He's good with both.
Pod's fine.
I didn't understand why they had to smack us in the face with that.
He's been a squire forever. Okay.
Yeah.
Give the guy a knighthood.
I dig it for sure. What happened to what's his face? The Baratheon.
Renly?
Gendry.
No, not Renly.
Gendry.
He got River
He gets
Run?
Storm's End.
Storm's End.
All right, they just sort of wrote him out.
He was in the council.
Oh, okay.
Storm's End is the Baratheon ancestral home, so to speak.
So Dany
before
gave
the
him
Baratheons
Storm's
were
End.
kings.
And then it's implied that he is just now the Lord of Storm's End, and he's running it.
Okay. I'm with you.
Which I'm fine with.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with that.
It's good.
I want to pour one out for our boy Tyrion, because it became more and more obvious to me each episode this season that he's the only through line that anyone cares about.
Yeah.
And it's entirely on the back of Peter Dinklage, who gave an all-time great TV performance in this show.
Yes.
I was talking to some of my friends, and they were like, oh, I could have sworn that Tyrion was dying. I'm like, I knew he wasn't going to die for the same reason Dale Dixon on The Walking Dead is never gonna die, because he's everybody's favorite character.
He's not only favorite though. There is something so relatable about that guy.
Yeah.
And you would never really expect it given where the character began. You know, you expect to sympathize with Rob and Ned, and here's just this random little person fucking a bunch of whores and drinking a lot. And it's like, what am I, like, you never expect him to be the avatar for the audience.
Yeah.
But that's what he became, and it's just because that guy is so damn likable and that performance is so charismatic. Yeah, he was the through line this entire episode, and I would say this is probably a story about Tyrion more than anything else. And that is one of the advantages of the show. I think whatever you want to say about the books, and book readers will argue that the books are better, and TV watchers will argue that the TV show is better. The magic of the TV show, and it's something that can only be achieved on television, is that a performer can really inhabit the character and add dimensions to the character that the words never could.
Yeah.
And that's what he did here so well. There were moments in this season where Tyrion's decision-making process made no sense. And there was a lot of like really flawed stuff, but you bought it because that performance just sold you on it.
Yeah.
So
There's one really important factor.
yeah,
Tyrion's technically king in the North. He's still married to Sansa.
good point.
Well, okay. I guess.
Fair point.
Just saying. I mean,
Do they have divorce in Westeros?
who won the Game of Thrones? Let's be real for a second. It's Tyrion.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that a win though.
What do you mean? He's in the most powerful position in the North, and I would say he's in the second most powerful position in both the North and the South.
That's like, you're like the last ranked seed, and everybody else just got disqualified. Like, that's that's how I would describe him winning.
He is country horse at the Kentucky Derby. That's what he is.
He's Bot Express.
Right. Winner by default. That's Tyrion. I liked where that ended for him. I
like that he finally got to tell that fucking joke.
Yes.
Well, no, but he never finished it.
Well, no, he finished it. We didn't hear the end, is the difference.
There's actually, I remember BuzzFeed wrote an article a while back where they asked a bunch of comedians to finish the joke.
To finish the joke?
Oh yeah.
Were any of them good?
A couple were pretty funny. It involves, sticky and ass.
Yeah.
It's, what is it, like a thing of honey and a donkey into a brothel?
I once walked into a brothel with a donkey and a honeycomb.
Yeah, I mean, so you can imagine where that's going to go.
Sure.
But
I love Bran saying, "This is your justice. Like, you're going to spend the rest of your life making up for your mistakes because you've made many of them."
Yeah.
I kind of like that little reflection. And again, I just love the dink, man.
Well, and I also love that he's the only one at the end in that scene who's actually been in that room before and had to have these meetings.
Right.
So, he's running the meeting and nobody else has a clue what's going on, really.
Yep.
I like how
I like that, though.
I like how I might be reading into this way too much, but he created order, like with the chairs and everything.
Yeah.
And then when everyone came in and just like ripped him out of the table and
Right.
just sat down,
Yes.
he just had like this look of like, of course.
Great little character beat.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, there's not
Love
enough
it.
of that on the show anymore.
Yeah.
That's a great little moment.
There was this scene earlier on where he's in prison and they just show this shot of Tyrion sideways laying on the ground for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And Michaela, I think she just goes like, it's a little long, a little drawn out. And I go, honestly, like, I could just sit here and watch 10 minutes of Peter Dinklage laying on the ground.
I would watch.
I'm fine with it.
I would watch the Long Night episode if it was just Tyrion sitting in the crypt and just every now and then off in the distance you heard something
hear
about
a-
the battle.
Oh, can you imagine just his expressions? His shit is just going crazy
And it's
outside.
just him
like-
sitting in the crypt.
It's just Cloverfield with
Yeah.
Dinklage and Sansa.
and that's
Yes.
the type of stuff that these past 2 seasons, maybe even past 3, I would argue, have kind of gotten away from. They've tried to move fast towards the ending, and they could have slowed down.
Yeah.
They could have just taken their time.
10 episodes.
I think that's the big takeaway that we're all taking from this, right?
Yeah.
Is that it wasn't bad, but they could have slowed down.
Yes.
And I think, by the way, I said this last week, I'll say it again. That's a really cool way to discuss television. And it's not normally a way that fanboys discuss television. And I don't mean this as a slight on fanboys, but we just watched Avengers a couple of weeks ago and everyone was like, whoa, wasn't it cool when Captain America picked up Thor's hammer? And that was the level of discourse around Avengers. But we've, as like a community on Twitter, have been talking about pacing and tone and character motivations. And like, that's an impressive thing. I think good job on us, the fan community. Pat ourselves on the back, because this was like a lot more intelligent than most fanboy discussion is.
Well,
there is some bad stuff going on in the community too.
There is. There always is. There's always a few bad apples.
People have a petition to remake the season.
You know what?
Yeah.
There are people who think that there are people who are Daenerys ride or dies.
Right. And by the way,
there are people who are justifying her actions. Right?
Yeah.
And that to me is wild. There are people who even not even people who are saying her actions don't make sense. They're saying, no, they do make sense. She should be queen.
Yeah.
Right. Which is like wild to me.
The best thing about...
Well, hold on. Excuse me for a second. I do want to point out, though, there was that line last night with John, and he said, this doesn't feel like the right decision. I want to point that out, too. Like, the show does give some sort of credence to that. Like, it's an evil. What she did was evil, no doubt, but it was perhaps a necessary evil. So they did keep it a little ambiguous. So I'm not sure like the show has wrapped up that decision-making process either.
Yeah.
And Dinklage even says, ask me in 10 years.
Ask me in 10 years, yeah.
Which I really dug. I actually liked that moment a lot. So, yeah, I think you actually could make the argument from a certain point of view. I mean, Varys did try to poison her. So killing Varys wasn't totally unjustified.
Yeah.
Cersei blew up a whole city, and many people cheered her on when she did it. So... yeah, I get it. I think we're supposed to take away that it was an evil thing, but there's a little more gray than I think we're giving it credit.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue what you were saying.
I was saying the greatest thing about just sort of the show was it made informed critics out of everyone.
Yeah.
Because even all of my friends who think the Transformers movies are like the best things ever, I've talked to them and they were like, you know, it seems slow. Like they said pacing, they talked about the lighting, they talked about character development.
Who the hell talks about cinematography besides me and Adam Hall? Like, that's like not normally a conversation, but people were complaining about the cinematography in episode 3.
Yeah.
And I'll take that criticism over, you know, the Force can't actually do that any day.
Yeah.
You know, like, I just think that's a higher level of conversation, even if I agree with it or don't. Like, I respect where people are coming from. And that's cool. I'm optimistic about that. Anything else? As we wrap up what may very well be the most important show of our lifetimes.
You know, just, again, I kind of also liked, it's just a little minor thing, I liked, or I would have liked more, I suppose, if they had some reflection on Jon's decision to kill Dany and sort of juxtaposed it with Jaime's choice all those years ago to kill the Mad King. You know,
there's certainly little things that I think ultimately it just comes down to time.
Yep.
If they spent more time on the show.
With Tyrion, though, saying like, you know, I wish Jaime was alive so I could ask him what he would have done or something, or what, you know, it's just something, you know, a little more, because I just think that would have been interesting. But
I'm glad Jaime and Cersei finally worked it out at the end of the day. I'm glad they got past their problems. I love those two characters. The show to me has always been about the Lannisters, and I just love them. So good on those two crazy kids. I hope they spend many an eternity in hell together. Happy.
Just pushing children out of windows.
Yeah. Again, I don't get why we made the Cripple King, but I guess I never will. And pretty good television show.
Yeah.
How about that? Can we say that?
As flawed as it is, it's hands down top 5 favorite shows ever for me.
Yeah, it's like in the top 20 maybe for me.
I like your dream of spring ending here, Nico, where, you know, even with all the flaws, you know, we're changing discourse about television.
Yeah.
That's the dream of spring.
I think that's an optimistic thing. And hopefully when Westworld season 3 comes out, we'll be talking about it in a similar way. Even though,
will we ever have a show like this again that will really...
No.
Where everybody is into it?
No, it's over. It's over. TV just isn't watched that way anymore. So even TV is becoming more popular and more shows are being watched by more people.
But it's all streaming television.
It's streaming and it's so niche.
It's very niche. Yeah, it's not, especially something like this that should be niche.
Right.
But it just became super popular.
Yeah, you don't really have consensus shows. You have maybe Stranger Things, and that's it. And I also think like...
But even then, I know more people who have never seen it, let alone...
Of course.
Liked it.
Yeah,
than people who have watched it.
I can't think of anything close to that. I really don't. I think like, again, there's more great TV being produced now than ever before, so that doesn't change. But episodic shows watched week to week that are like discussed at the water cooler,
kind of on the way out.
It's over. It's over. That was the last one.
We'll probably get another one eventually, but it'll be, a while from now. So
it'll be when they're just beaming it into our heads.
Yeah, you'll be watching it on your Apple Watches, and I always thought that like eventually they'll be streaming on like the gas station pumps. Like you'll be like
it's just a 24-hour state of being fed a show.
Yeah, it's just everybody has a streaming service now. We're one step away from Exxon getting into the game, Everybody has a streaming service. So yeah. Rest in peace to Game of Thrones, and that's it. I feel like we should play Drew Carey's now, but that's another podcast.
It's a different podcast.
Yeah. This has been Cultured. Check out the website for more of our shenanigans. Why is this a thing? 2 episodes on the way with the 3 of us and Adam Hall and some guests. You can find those each and every Wednesday on the website tmt.media or too-many-thoughts-media.com. The Nico Show, Movie Hall of Fame, 2 Cents Radio, all available on the website. Give us a follow on Twitter at TMT_media, and subscribe, rate, review on iTunes. Love y'all.
That's your closing line.
And please come back next week.
Oh, it ends with begging.
Because then and only then will you and I finally get culture. Also, I really need to eat.